Hello, welcome to part 3 of our Macroorganism Diversity Lab. In this section, we are going to focus on the animal kingdom. So there are many different groups of animals. In lecture, we learned about 9 primary groups, but we are going to focus on 2 groups that are common in the deciduous woods that we've been visiting. So our first group is the arthropod group, and they have all the advanced traits that we talked about in lecture. Things like bilateral symmetry, things like having a coelom, a true internal space, and even having a digestive tract where there's an opening at both ends. In addition to that, they have segmentation, which only a few groups have, where body parts repeat. And some of their distinguishing traits are the fact that they have exoskeletons. So as they grow, they have to shed or molt those and then grow new ones. They typically have 3 body regions: a head, a chest, and a abdomen. They have, and the name of the group actually comes from one of their distinguishing traits, which is jointed appendages. So arthro means jointed and pod means foot. So in this case, they're saying jointed feet, but it could be antenna, it could be legs, lots of different things can be jointed. So there's over 1 million species in this group, and that makes them the largest of all the groups we've studied. The vast majority of them are insects and spiders, and those are probably the ones you're more familiar with. But we're also going to be looking at crustaceans and centipedes in particular in this lab. Now, the second group that we're going to be dealing with are the chordates. You are probably more familiar with them by a different name, the vertebrates. They're going to have all the same advanced traits that the arthropods had. In terms of distinguishing traits, they're different in terms of how their brain and their spinal cord and their spinal column, the bones around the spinal cord, develop. So we're only going to focus on the vertebrates in this group. There are a few invertebrate species, but primarily we're going to be looking at the 5 main groups that you're quite familiar with, probably: mammals, fish, reptiles, birds, amphibians. And we won't actually hit all 5 of those because you wouldn't find every one of those in a forest. So let's start with the invertebrates first. We are going to talk about, again, we're in the arthropod kingdom, animal kingdom, but arthropod phylum. And I wanted to share some of my favorite sources with you for locating all things little. So insectidentification.org. I love the Animal Diversity site, and I love University of Michigan's BioKids site. They have an awesome critter guide there. So if you're ever wandering around outside, you might find something cool to explore. I also want to give you a little bit of tips about how to search for these things. And so if you are searching in the woods, a good place to look for a lot of things is underneath logs and in the leaf litter. So in the top picture there, we can see a close-up of some fall leaf litter. There's all kinds of things that like the cover, the darkness, and even the organic content of that leaf litter. If you're searching for information online, sometimes using a common name is not going to get you to the kind of information you want. So it's much better to use the scientific names like what we're seeing here and here. So I just wanted to show you a quick clip that I took last week of looking in the woods. It was a little bit too cold that day, but I did manage to find a critter or 2. So I'm hunting in the woods for whatever I can find under logs. I was hoping for centipedes or isopods, but I found this gorgeous little red-backed salamander. Oh, come here, buddy. They're slippery little devils. Okay, let's just film him. They like to hide under things, which is why I was trying to pick up. So that video gives you a really good sense of the leaf litter. Unfortunately, it was just a little bit too cold and a little bit too dry that day for the other stuff that I was looking for. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the first of our 2 arthropods. So we're going to do the common pill bug. We're going to start with the video, and then we'll kind of recap some of the important points. Just a reminder, you should be taking notes and observations into your lab manual. There are pages in the back where you can summarize each organism.
Hello, I'm Karen Rent, a naturalist for the Harris Center for Conservation Education, and this is Wild at Home. Have you ever flipped over a rock or dug through your garden and found a roly-poly? Maybe you call them pill bugs or potato bugs. Even though many refer to pill bugs as insects, they're not bugs at all. They're actually crustaceans. They're more closely related to a lobster than to an insect. Roly-polies are also called woodlice, along with their relatives, the sow-bugs. Roly-polies and sow-bugs are both isopods. This means that all 7 pairs of their legs are pretty much the same. The roly-poly's adaptation of curling into a ball is a defense mechanism. The sow-bug does not have that ability. Another way to tell them apart is that sow-bugs have 2 short points, or tail-like structures, on their hind end. Pillbugs and sow-bugs need moisture to live because they breathe with gills. That's why they're often found under rotting logs, rocks, or leaves. These tiny creatures play a big role as decomposers in their environment. They eat decaying plant and animal material and help recycle that material into soil. They also are eaten by predators like beetles, centipedes, amphibians, and even some small mammals. Take a walk around your yard or a nearby park. Look under a rock or dig under some fallen leaves and see if you can find a roly-poly or a sow-bug. Does it roll up when you try to pick it up? If not, then you found a sow-bug. Can you count how many legs that they have? What else do you notice about them? Spending time with a wild animal, even a tiny roly-poly, is always exciting. You always have a chance to learn something new. Happy Wild at Home watching!
Okay, so let's recap some of the main things that you could write down about the common pillbug in your lab notebooks. So the first thing, if my clicker is gonna work with me here, let's not restart the video. All right, so they're also known as, filling in the blanks, roly-polies and wood lice. Where do we find them? We tend to find them under rocks, leaf litter, under logs. Remember, the video mentioned that they need to be in places with some high degree of moisture because they actually breathe with gills, and gills require that dissolving of gases across a wet surface. How many legs do they have? They had 7 pairs, or 14 total, and that was a clue to some of their taxonomy. So these guys, kingdom Animalia, phylum Arthropoda. They're in subphylum Crustacea, so they're considered crustaceans, which is one of the main arthropod groups. And then the video also referred to them as isopods, which is actually their class level designation. So class Isopoda, which means basically the 7 legs that they talked about. In terms of their role, all organisms impact other organisms or impact the environment around them. So these guys have a huge role as decomposers. They are also an important food source for things like centipedes and amphibians. When they're threatened, and this is where that fun nickname comes from, we can see that in the picture right here. Okay, they roll up into a ball and they have like little armored plates which can help protect them from some of those predators. And so roly-poly is that name that we go with for that. All right, so on this slide, I took a slightly different approach. I'm going to have the video playing off to the side, but while it's playing, you can be listening, but you can also be recording some of this information. Don't have to have all of it. Remember, you only have a small third of a page, so you're kind of hitting the highlights, the things that are interesting to you. The bark centipede is one of 26 species in Michigan. And here we go with the video in the background.
One of the creatures I've had the hardest time trying to find while shooting Can I Catch It Season 1 is a bark centipede. And here, under a brick, I've finally found one. Only question is, can I catch it? What's up guys, welcome back to Can I Catch It, the niche show all about finding a wildlife adventure right at home in your own backyard. In today's episode, I have finally found a creature that I've been searching long and hard for, the bark centipede. Centipedes are the epitome of an incredibly efficient predator. Mostly nocturnal, these swift, ferocious beasts are the terrors of the subterranean world. Unlike their cousins the millipedes, these guys have a flat, segmented body that can help them squeeze through all kinds of incredibly tight spaces to get to whatever prey might be hiding within it.
That flat body is important.
Help lock prey in place as they go for the killing blow with their front venom claws. modified legs that act as fangs to deliver a painful bite that can subdue a foe or kill prey. Many people are afraid of spiders, insects, snakes, things like that. While I don't claim to be afraid of centipedes, centipedes are one of the animals that makes me the most nervous to handle. Because of their fast movements and incredible grip, taking a bite can be very easy and very painful. If you're ever
I'm just going to pause the video there. The guy is playing this up just a little bit for the publication purpose. So yes, they do have venomous bites, but most centipedes are not going to have a strong enough bite to penetrate human skin. They're designed for much smaller things. You can see on the screen here that they go for soft-bodied insects, spiders, worms, things that have not a lot of protective coverings. Most of the time, they're not going to be able to harm or hurt humans.
exploring and you come across a centipede and want to catch it, I always recommend using a secondary capture device or gloves. I had recently seen a few large centipedes under bricks in this garden, so today I decided to set up a camera and start looking around to see if I can catch one. My search for a centipede was long and hard. I was looking at all the usual spots, under logs, in between bark and rotting logs, out in the woods. Even though conditions were ideal, it seemed that I could not find a centipede when I was actively looking for one. It was only recently that I accidentally stumbled on a few in these bricks and decided this time I'm going to see if I can find one in the same area. I'm not a big believer in luck, but I am a believer in the law of averages. At some point, somewhere, I will encounter this fearsome arthropod. And sure enough, under the right brick, there was a massive red monster, a red bark centipede. I used a circular plastic capture jar, covered him with the base, then carefully slid the top underneath, scooping him up and encapsulating him. At long last, I had captured a bark centipede. Let's get him up closer to the cameras. Have a look at those fangs. These fangs, or venom claws, are actually a modified pair of legs. Centipedes are actually fairly simple creatures, but are also incredibly efficient predators. They can follow complex chemical trails to hunt down prey, and move swiftly and silently in the dead of night. No centipedes are known to be medically significant in the sense that they can kill you, and this species will only give you a very nasty bite. Despite their name, centipedes do not in fact have 100 legs. They do have many legs, and depending on the species and genus, the amount of segments and legs they have can vary. Even though they may not have 100 legs, just imagine the body coordination you need to have to rhythmically move all of the legs they do have and be as efficient at killing as they are. They might be.
All right, so I'm going to stop the video there. So they've mentioned a couple of things that make centipedes distinctive, which is the flattened body with the one pair of legs per segment. Again, it may not add up to 100. They mentioned the venomous jaw or venomous body parts, which are actually modified legs, which we can see up here near the top of the picture. And in the next video, I am going to continue with the 3 vertebrate species that we could commonly find in the woods.